words, the Jan, the soul. The third line drops the Kamil altogether and gives us just the insan. Was it just the human all along? Do we no longer need the qualification of perfect? In any case, what does the human now do? Walks, and does so in the way of the soul, which is another meaning of Revan. That's how the human now walks, according to the flow, like the Ruhu Revan, and does so in the final line, step by measured step, following the yol, the road. This poem then goes on to a different point. So here we might pause and take a breath and shift to a more front door approach to our topic, which is the theme of the Insan-ı Kamil in Bektashi tradition, what it is and what it does. The idea of a human figure who is in some sense ideal or cosmic goes way back. Talked about in some form or other in early Sufism, in Neoplatonism, in Hinduism, Buddhism, and probably every mystical tradition. Among Sufis, the phrase al-insan al-kamil seems to have first developed into a concept with Ibn Arabi in his Fusus al-Hikam, which translated as the bezels or the seal of wisdom. The bezels in this work are the prophets, that is, the religiously special humans, listed in separate chapters from Adam to Muhammad. And it is the first bezel, that of Adam, in which Ibn Arabi introduces the Insan al-Kamil. The chapter begins like this. The real wanted to see the essences of its most beautiful names as they really operate, or, to put it another way, to see its essence in an all-inclusive being containing all of them and qualified by existence. Through this being, its mystery would be revealed to it, for the seeing of a thing, itself by itself, is not the same as its seeing itself in another, as it were in a mirror. So it manifests itself to itself in a form which is provided by the place in which it is seen. It would not appear thus without the existence of this place and its manifestation to itself in it. So we see that the real, Hak, or God, desires to see itself, its essence, in a way that encapsulates all its qualities. And this involves creating an object that would serve as a mirror in which it could see itself. And this entails a manifestation of itself in a form. And this requires it taking place, a mazhar, or locus of manifestation. So with this purpose, Hak created Adam as the first insan, but also the insan kamil, the perfect human. Perfect in that it contains all of the qualities of the real, synthesizing them as a microcosm. This is a cosmic understanding of the Insan Kamil, one close to divine, because the perfect human is here an image of the real, yet one that probably relates, like the first human, Adam, to all humans. It is like the divine essence within the created human, the subtle body, the soul, and it is an image to be seen, or in other words, a reality to be known. These ideas of Ibn Arabi were picked up and developed by later Sufi metaphysicians and came to be a central focus of the 14th, 15th century writer Abdul Karim al-Jili, whose most famous work is in fact titled Al-Insan al-Kamil. Jili continues to see the perfect human in Ibn Arabian terms as a mirror of the real with links to the prophets, but relating the figure to the pole, the kutub, identifies him more directly with the figure of the final prophet, Muhammad, through the cosmological concept of the Hakikat Muhammadiyya, the Muhammad in reality. Muhammad here takes on a cosmological role, not unlike that which Ali took in Shi'i-type mysticism, as with Alevism and Bektashism. Of course, Sufi metaphysics is complex and abstract and abstruse, so these concepts are quite loose around the edges. In fact, Fitzroy Morrissey, in a recent book on this topic, identifies in the Ibn Arabi Jili tradition 3 different understandings of the identity of the Insan al-Kamil. It could refer to all humans as perfect, at least potentially, the perfect humans as all of the prophets and or the saints, or the perfect human as Muhammad. So if there can be this kind of diversity of conceptions within the Sunni Sufi metaphysical prose tradition, we might then also expect to find a range of ways of thinking about the perfect human within the Bektashi tradition, which spans the centuries from the time of Jili till today, stretches from the Middle East through Anatolia to the Balkans, and whose ideas are not restricted to prose writing. When we look at this tradition, we can in fact identify various types of perfect humans and ways of conceptualizing them. So let's look at some of the ideal figure types, regardless of whether they carry the label İnsan-ı Kamil. First, we can say there are legendary ideal humans. Legendary in the sense that they are historical figures, but they have in Bektashi discourse taken on divine features and cosmological roles as they personify what it means to be perfect. These figures include, first and foremost, Ali, the Shah Velayet, the Shiri Yazdan. When he appears alone, he is usually actually more elevated than Muhammad. But he is at other times united with the figure of Muhammad into a single cosmic being called Muhammad Ali. And this is often united with Allah or Haq to make Haq Muhammad Ali. These versions of Ali are ubiquitous in Bektashi poetry, ritual speech, and the Miraj narrative. Another legendary figure or group is, of course, the 12 Imams, the great martyrs with Hussein as the most visceral. Hussein is, of course, the center of much of Bektashi and Alevi discourse and practice, and the 12 Imams are commemorated through poetry and through the symbolic use of the number 12, which takes many forms in the tradition. And, of course, there is the great saint who has lent his name to the tradition, Hacı Bektaş. He and other saints are also historical human figure types through which Bektashis conceive of ideal humanity and whose traces can be found throughout the tradition, especially in hagiography. Less historical than these are the figures that we can perhaps refer to as cosmomythologically ideal types. Those who are not really historical, don't have individual identities, but are commemorated as groups of cosmic beings that are perhaps not physically present, but existent in some sense, probably from the past. These groups include the 40, the Kırklar, those who were holding the gathering that Muhammad joined after his Miraj. Another formulation is the Erenler, which means literally those who attain, similar to the way saints are often referred to as ermiş, has attained, attainment being a particular kind of perfection, namely a mystical one. The Erenler are also referred to as the Gayip Erenler, the absent attainers, because of their lack of physical presence. And we also hear of the Gerçek Erenler, or just the Gerçekler, the real ones, to whose dem, who is said at the end of Gülbanks, Gerçekler demine who. We get the sense that these are human figures and perfect ones, but more amorphous than the legendary ones. They represent the mystical part of the tradition to which present members are expected to align themselves. We can find another ideal human type in the present members themselves, actual living people who are affiliated with the Bektashi order, since when they interact in dialogue, they actually address each other as Erenler. To explain their relationship to the Gayip or absent Erenler, we can consider them Hazır or present Erenler. We'll come back to this type of perfect human in a moment. Finally, we can find in Bektashi tradition the Ibn Arabian type of cosmic İnsan-ı Kamil, the human as an embodiment of God, the real, the universe as a microcosm. This type of perfect human is actually not mentioned in Bektashi poetry as much as we might expect. We see it, however, as a frequent theme in Bektashi art. A common example is the calligraphic human face, in which, in this example, is inscribed the cosmic trinity of Allah, Muhammad, and Ali, with Ali being here. These conceptions are sometimes extended to the entire human body, where they might include Hassan and Hussein and Adam and other cosmological names, backgrounded with images of the creation of the world, which interestingly often rests upon a fish, along with symbolic signs of the dangers of the nefs, the bodily ego, with its bodily desires. The most elaborate of these İnsan-ı Kamil paintings leave behind the boundaries of Arabic letters altogether and actually draw human figures, but include extensive text within them that explains the cosmological details of the human as microcosm reality, such as the inclusion of zodiac signs. The text in the right-hand medallion of this one, Burge translates, "Now come, O ye seeker for the divine love. There is no doubt but that the holy body of the Gnostic in God and of the perfect man is the most great copy." The original of this image is most likely this painting, housed in the Hacı Bektaş Asitane, which is, of course, now a museum. It's extremely detailed and exquisitely executed. Between the bows of its eyebrows, near what we can consider the third eye chakra, we might say, is the word mihrab, the focal point of worship, there in the human face. A more recent version is by the great 20th century Bektashi Baba Turgut Koja. It's no longer contained by the human figure, but rather includes the cosmic element concepts within clouds floating around the central human figure, below which is written Kyami Lin-san. My pointer's not working. Kyami Lin-san, right below the human figure. It's okay, I think I can manage. Not working on the screen. So there's the human figure. Right below that is written Kyami Lin-san, and above it is the Kabe Kav Sein, the two bows length. The Quran tells us Muhammad came within on his ascension to the real, or even closer, Eved Na. There are intellectual faculties represented here, and the Dirt Kappa, the four gates, and there is a descent here through the four elements from the air, fire, water, and earth, and then up the other side through the world, through plants and animals, up to the insan. This is a more summary version of the two-arc process which Burge gives us from Niazi Mystery, which goes down from ethereal to material, and then back up to the insan and Kyama. But Turgut Baba's is much more concise. The cosmic Insan Kyami, the legendary saints, the ethereal absent Erenler, the material present Erenler, all of these are separate conceptualizations of the perfect human. But of course, in this tradition, everything converges into synthesis. So they are all ultimately interrelated and can be considered aspects of the same reality. But since Bektashism is purportedly a here and now oriented tradition, the intriguing aspect is that of the living affiliates, present-day Bektashis. Is their perfection acquired immediately within initiation, or is it something achieved through a process? Bektashism is considered a yol, a way. So it would seem that its perfection would occur, if it does it all, through progressing along the way. That is the aspect I'll look at now, and I'll argue that what moves one along the path is the urge to follow a model, a particularly Bektashi model of the perfect human informed by the cosmic conceptions. The cosmic figures are all admirable and lend themselves to veneration. Bektashis praise them and even prostrate before them, and this might hinder their imitability. But there also seems to be another perfect human figure, one that doesn't have a name and is not venerated, and in fact exists only in pieces scattered throughout the tradition. Yet the qualities that mark this figure can be seen as coming together to form a model of the perfect Bektashi human, one initiates are encouraged to strive to be like or to become by taking on its qualities. It would resemble in some respects the model person in other tarikats, but with many of its own special features. Conceptually and aesthetically, it resembles quite closely that of the Alevis and other related traditions. But since I'll be looking in part at the ritual system and its role in the delineation of this perfect human, I'll be focusing on the tradition of the Bektashi Dervish order. That is the tarikat, the group that still wears the taj and the hurka and all the other accessories. Organized under the Dede Baba hierarchy system, what is often referred to as the Babagyan. My exposure to Bektashis has been mostly in Turkey, so I'll be referring to that cultural context in particular. It may be different in some small details from the Bektashism we find in Albania and the Balkans. So what exactly are we looking for? First, if there is such a model human, what would it entail? It would naturally be a human. So what characterizes a human? At its most fundamental level, a human is a being, so it exists in time and space. A human thus requires a world to live in. The human then interacts with that world, sees, senses the things of the world, perceives them. The human receives nourishment from the world and tries to know it. Humans, as a general rule, live among other people in communities where they develop relationships with others, their interaction with them guided by rules and structures laid down before their arrival. They acquire a moral code. The community then shapes the human's attitudes towards the world and the kinds of emotions they feel as they interact with it. The human thereby experiences the world, and equipped with all these qualities, the human walks in the world, acts, lives. So if a human in general is a being possessing these properties, the perfect human that a tradition imagines would also possess such properties, but in a perfect way. How have Bektashis formulated this model human? It's not so much how Bektashis have explicitly described their model, but how the tradition as it has developed has come to present the perfect human model to people who engage with the tradition. It does so in particular through poetry and through practice. So I'll be looking at the ways Bektashis versify or sing about the qualities of the perfect human, and also at the ways they try to put these ideas into practice, especially through ritual. A human exists in space and time, so is in need of a world. As Resmi Ali Baba says, Alem Ademsiz, Adem Alemsiz olmaz. So what kind of world have Bektashis constructed for the perfect human? How have they organized space and time to reflect their image of the perfect world? The Alem-i Kamil, we might say. The best representation of such a world is probably the ritual world of the Meydan, the space arranged for the main Bektashi ritual. The use of the term Meydan is interesting. Meydan in everyday Turkish is usually associated with the public square, but as the Bektashi ritual space is decidedly not public. It's not open but purposefully closed. So there, closed to the outside world, the admitted humans can interact with the world specifically designed to reflect Bektashi ideals and act out the qualities of the perfect human. The Meydan is thus a microcosm, a simulacrum of the imagined real world, and the ritual insan is the this-worldly simulacrum of the ideal agent in the real world. The special status of the Meydan is made manifest upon entrance when initiates will prostrate and kiss the threshold, the eshik, before stepping over the threshold into the microcosmic space. The prototype for the Bektashi Meydan seems to have been the Meydan Evi in Hacı Bektaş. And many of the things we notice here, even in its museum form, we also find in other Meydans. We notice, for one, the pictures on the wall. It's very common to find pictures of past Bektashi saints or Babas to remind those present of the perfect humans of the past. The Meydan is thereby the Hall of Saints. We also notice the sheepskins, the post, that have been laid out as the seating places for those participating in the ritual. The posts are at the same time bear the names of certain great Bektashis of the past, Balım Sultan and Sarı Ismail and Abdal Musa and others. So that present Bektashis literally take the seats of the great ones. The post associated with Hacı Bektaş is, of course, occupied by the Baba leading the Meydan, marking the hierarchy of the social system, as well as providing a focal point for the ritual. Next to the Baba's post is a three-step wooden platform called the throne, the Takht of Muhammad. The Takht is often associated with Muhammad's sermon at Ghadir Hum, which is significant in that not only did it praise the Ahl Bayt and declare Ali as Mevla, but it also served as the context for the declaration of the Ikmal ad-Din, the perfection of religion. The steps are also linked to the Mi'raj, Muhammad's ascension, so its presence in the Meydan might suggest the intended ascension in the ritual realm of Meydan participants. More practically, the steps serve to support numerous candles, which are called chara, literally lamp. The lights of the lamps indicate a divine presence or enlightenment, but in terms of their arrangement, they are significantly placed in numbered groups. 1 at the bottom, the Baba Sanja. 3, you can see on the top step, the Kanun Evliya. 4 on the sides, and of course the other 12 on the 3 steps, recalling various sets of cosmic ideals. There's often a copy of the Quran on the Takht, open to the light verse, which declares Allah the light of the heavens and the earth, with the likeness of his light being a lamp in a niche. And this serves to link what is happening on the earthly ritual plane with the ultimate reality of the heavenly plane. Much of the Meydan ritual consists of the lighting of these lamps by a dervish while reciting terjüman formulas, which might be said to activate the connection between the two planes. With the Meydan in its ritual presenting to participants what they present, the rest of Bektashi discourse, especially Nefes poems, then step in to reiterate their significances, such as in this Nefes by the 20th century Bektashi Yusuf Fahir Baba, beginning Şah-ı-Mali Abaya. Meydan özge bir yerdir, bilmek ana hünerdir, erkanı erenlerdir, gelenlere aşk olsun. So the Meydan is a special place. To know it is a merit. It's the rights of the erenler, love to those who come. When people do come, they come into a community. And as another feature of our generic human, this also takes Bektashi form and helps shape the perfect human, the Jemaat Kamil, we might say. The community is constructed in a rigid hierarchical system with a Dede Baba at top, halifes at the next rung, bubbles below them, dervishes below them, and initiated muhibs at the base. And these ranks are marked through differences in costume, seating, and salutations. At the level of communal interaction, it is the murshid, the spiritual guide, that is the orientational point which manners and behaviors, edep, erkan, are organized. In Bektashi poetry, we often hear references to the murshid kamil, the perfect guide. The rigidity of the social structure is, however, softened in other aspects of Bektashi communal life. If we look into the deep well that is the corpus of Nefes poems, what can we find in this regard? One interesting mode of poetic discourse that we often find is the first-person plural voice in what we can call the we poems, where the poet uses this voice to reveal what constitutes Bektashi tradition. There are many of these poems. One classic example is by Pir Sultan Abdal. Uyuridik uyardılar, diriye saydılar bizi. Koyun olduk, ses anladık, sürüye saydılar bizi. Every line assumes the we voice. It's all we. So we get a sense of the intended experience of becoming part of the communal tradition. And with the feeling of belonging that this engenders, the cues in the poem for how to be the perfect human gain validity. The value of awareness, the vitality it gives one, the virtue of submission and the consequent perceptiveness, and the acceptance into the community by the they of the poem, the elders, the predecessors. When these songs are then sung by members of the community in the context of a sofra or a muhabbet gathering, they are often sung by all in unison, reinforcing the nefes, the sense of belonging in a ritually generated atmosphere of communitas. In this world and within this community, the Bektashi's goal is to take on the characteristics of the perfect human, which are presented in discourse and practice. The virtues of patience, humility, the submission of saying Eyvallah to all that occurs. But at the same time, the passiveness of these virtues is balanced by the activeness inherent in what we can call the Bektashi attitude. This is an attitude informed by the theme of ashk, the love that draws one to move towards the object without holding back. It's a bold attitude that scoffs at the hypocrites who criticize. It's a knowing attitude that values appreciating the world and perceiving the truth within it. The ashkir is the aggregative approach, which tries to bring together everything. One poem that brings together many of our ideas of the Bektashi perfect human is by the 19th century Bektashi poet Mirati, who was from Kalecik near Ankara. His name, by the way, is from the word mirat, meaning mirror. The poem goes, Amena söyledik, hem ikrar ettik, erenler bezmine laşekçesine, bağ marifette yetişip bittik, boy aldık her gülden çiçekçesine. We poems in the communal voice saying who we are. Even the Arabic word amena has we in it, we believed. And it's in the affirmative mood. We don't just believe, we say we believe. Ikrar is in fact a technical term in Bektashi ritual for receiving initiation. What have we committed ourselves to? The tradition of the erenler, those who attain. And of course, it's not their mektep, it's their bezm. We've joined their feast, and we entered without doubt, the bold, self-assured attitude, just like the erenler. Now we're in the garden of knowledge, and it is there that we have reached perfection. In that beautiful garden are roses of knowing, and these we have smelled, perceived, taken in. The perfect human engages with the world sensorially and takes nourishment from it. The poem goes on. Söylesem kelamım gelmez takrire. Nutku derunumuz sığmaz tefsire. İkrar verdik, iman ettik bir pire. Evlade eriz gerçekçesine. So what I know I could tell, but it's elusive, it's obscure, and it can't be stated outright. Our kind of speech is the inner kind, and it's so vast that it can't be contained in explanation. We've committed ourselves to appear, to a murshid, one of the requirements of the way, and we have done so communally And here the affirmation is clearly that of initiation. And we've become the human. Here it's a bit difficult to avoid the masculine terminology, but I think it's pretty clear that it's referring not to just the male, but to all humans, because the human is as though the real, which is beyond gender. Goes on. Gel gönül arifol hattini bilsen, semidir, basirdir, etme şekküman. El hakku esharu mine şemsolan, sofi inat eder eşekçesine. So, telling the heart to be wise, which is, if you notice, is the combination of ashk and akal. Semi and basir, those are qualities of hak, part of the 99 names of God, and thus also the qualities of the insan kamil. So like the model human, we too should hear and see, that is, perceive the reality. And this is done affirmatively, without doubt or suspicion. This Arabic phrase is a praise of hak, but the very saying of the sentence implies hak is something that might actually not be always apparent. So we should see it. And this brings in the Sufi, or Sofu, the antagonist of the tale. So bound by the superficial rules, he can't see the truth beyond them and resists like a donkey, and accuses us for not being bound. The Sofi, the other, in contrast to the we of the poem, who aren't afraid, don't resist, and see it clearly. And the final verse, Mirati sözlerin gizli muamma, ulul ebsar olanları hüvera, elsiziz, belsiziz, dilsiz ama gezeriz alemde erkekçesine. So the poet, Mirati, or the mirror, addresses himself, but says his own words are obscure. Does he himself not understand, or is he emphasizing the value of concealing the truth in mystery? A return to the value of perception, and by now it should be clear that the people of perception and the we of the poem are one and the same. The moral code of being the master of your hand, your loins, and your tongue, we have become that. And like that, in that world, we walk, and that is the way of the human. Mirati in this poem is not literally encouraging the audience to take on the qualities of the perfect human. He's saying his own community has already done it. But when the audience, aspiring to be part of that community, hear it, they must at least be a bit inspired to take on those qualities themselves. I'm not suggesting here that everybody who engages with this tradition will or even can become perfected. Bektashis don't either. In fact, they often warn of the difficulty of completing the way, which is sharper than a sword, a shirt of fire, a chickpea of iron. But this is what the tradition has come to present as the model for how to become the perfect human, the real, as if in a mirror. Thank you.
Dear Mark, thank you very much, so much for this perfect presentation. Yeah. I don't know if there are questions. I have one, but let it be later after we complete the panel. Yes? So the floor is to Melih. He will be second or you? He wants to be second. Okay. Ayhan.
Evet, konuşmamı Türkçe yapacağım. Hepinizi sevgiyle selamlıyorum. Bu organizasyonda bizleri bir araya getiren değerli insanlara şükranlarımız vardır. Ama bu ışık Rumeli'nin kutup yıldızı olan Seyyid Ali Sultan dergahından parladı. Kutup yıldızımız daim olsun, kılavuzumuz erenler olsun. Pirimiz Hünkâr Hacı Bektaş Veli'nin yolunda gidenlere aşk olsun, merhaba. İnsana kamil, mürşit, pir, dede, baba, bunlar çok geçiyor, kullanılıyor. Alevi Bektaşi öğretisinin olmazsa olmazları. Baba sultanlar, doğa, çevre, kutsallık. Alevi Bektaşi öğretisinin yolunun özünde insan var ve insanı kamile ulaşmak en büyük hedef ve erdem. Ama sıradan bir insan nasıl insanı kamil olabilir? Nasıl erdemli, toplumun örnek aldığı, örnek bir Alevi Bektaşi olabilir? Bu dünyada doğup, göçtüğü güne kadar nefsi dolayısıyla kırıp dökerek, inciterek, benliğine yenilerek, hep kendisi için bir şeyler isteyen insan ve insanoğlu nasıl olur da saflaşabilir, arınabilir? Arifler hem arıdır hem arıtıcıdır dediği gibi Pirimizin, Hacı Bektaş Veli'nin. Buna nasıl ulaşılabilir? Yüzyıllar boyunca bu öğreti ocaklarda, tekkelerde, dergahlarda dilden dile, gönülden gönüle, kuşaktan kuşağa bilge insanların yine
in decades from our communities, this path is shown. This tradition is about going through four doors and trying to reach God. As another poet said, I looked at the mirror and I saw Ali instead of myself. Now, how this tradition was passed on from generation to generation, this became possible through gatherings, through gems. And it was not only about that. Until the day an Alevi Bektashi dies, they always learn things and progress towards this goal. That's not an easy path, of course. Of course, Imam Hussein in Kerbala is one of those examples with references to pain and suffering, and how through this suffering one can reach
içerisinde
the light. So all these people who taught us these values, we have followed their example because they are wise people, wise men, people who knew about many things of high morality, not ordinary people, of course. They wrote their own history, and they were truly charismatic individuals. Salsalta, back in the 14th century, Sweet Ali Sultan, who conquered this area with his heart, as the speaker says, and many other leaders who followed them then became cherished by people. The Baba Erinlesh are not different from the Alevi Dedes. However, Bektashism has found a certain identity, mostly in Romania and the Balkans. It is a path through Alevism with the Babas and Dedes, always smiling, people who are always there to help others. These figures stayed with the hearts and minds of thousands of people in Romania. These were individuals that were always willing to help others. They were there to help you resolve your problems. They were always positive and shared their positive views with others. They were always speaking in a very mild way. I have a very good archive of pictures. However, I haven't been able to choose some of these pictures to show them to you here. Possibly I should have done so. Possibly you remember that there is a snake around a tree, and with Karis Abdal standing opposite to that tree. This is the Dar. Posture. And this is basically about reconciling with nature. On the one hand, this symbolizes the control that the human being has to have on their deepest desires and the need to reconcile with nature. While Haji Bektash is chasing some animals, he would sweat and say that he was really tired. These were the people that became role models for many others. Haji Bektash became one of those models for several holy men. When, for example, he would draw water from a well to clean the courtyard of a house, and he also managed to light a fire that is still burning in the depths of Anatolia. Abdal Musa from one village to the other, and life now with no water, with no trees, you have nothing, absolutely nothing. So that element of nature was there, while they also had the knowledge required to create communities and manage those communities. Abdal Musa, for example, created oases in difficult conditions. They brought animal husbandry and agriculture to support those communities. Babalar and Dedes, as we call them, as main protagonists, main characters, while at the same time they could be perspicuous and manage those communities, govern those communities. That was the role of the Baba Erenler, those enlightened men. They also knew much about the Christianism, as we know of many of them, and based on several sources. As far as we know, Sarasatuk struggles to save the princess. He tries to beat a seven-headed monster, possibly each of the heads corresponding to specific places. Now, Sayyid Ali Sultan has contributed to this. Ali had his own horse, and Sarasatuk has his own horse, and they would both fight against the tyrants, as well as Karahmet Sultan at Üsküdar in Istanbul. In Üsküdar, Karaca Ahmed Sultan there is a mausoleum for his horse as well, because he was this horse was his closest friend. Now, this love towards animals, towards nature, is expressed almost everywhere. Haji Bektash had planted a mulberry tree This mulberry tree is present across several shrines. Mountains covered in.
Bunda da bir erenimizin kabri var, yatırı var.
Snow hosted many of those holy men, and on those peaks you also have mausoleums for those holy men. Now, all these mausoleums are part of the real world and within nature, because God, using his own
bütün hayvanlar can. Kızılderili Seyyid Ali Sultan dergahının çevresindeki
his own matter to create the whole world, animals, nature. Now, if you see the area around those mausoleums, there was no hunting of deers, for example, no hunting of animals. So many representations of animals, deers, doves. So this is how he managed to engage in that path, the world of Alevi, Bektashi, the wisdom of Baba and Lair, the unity, this unity is absolutely clear. We have Gul Baba, who is growing roses, Geikli Baba, who lives together with deers. And before concluding, I would like to say, to mention the case of Sayyid Ali Sultan. So that village of Rusa on the one hand they engage in that path of solidarity and follow those practices with respect towards nature, together with Christians and Greeks, without insulting or hurting anybody. Now, every time this place is absolutely clean. Every year in the spring there are cleaning actions undertaken around there. It is as if these people were still alive, although in mausoleums, lying in mausoleums. So food is distributed there because and everyone has the right to eat that food. Across all villages of Alevi Bektashis, you have these traditions. It is indeed a very positive example, and I hail all those who are engaged on that path. This is the path towards nature, towards love vis-à-vis our fellow individuals. I have spoken with several Baba and Lair, and at this moment society has now changed considerably, dramatically. And that holy man told me that, I see you are rather a pessimist individual. Now, from that, based on our experience from that village, we see that all people have
bir baba erenler vardı, kapısını çaldığımız.
now become a new Baba Sultan.
Benzeyelim. Gönlünüz var olsun Seyyid Ali Sultan.
So people are now similar to those holy men. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, dear Ayhan. Now the floor is to dear Melih Duygulu to present us a paper regarding the Alevi music in the Balkans. Yes?
Teşekkür ederim.
No, you are not projecting.
No problem. No problem. I know. Değerli konuklar, hayli yoğun geçen bu sempozyumun en son konuşması sanıyorum. Hani o akademik birimde bana
I think it's the last, my presentation is the last one of this panel.
ve fakat bu Bektaşiliğin biz adını koymuş olsak da gerçekten bunun Bektaşilikle nasıl bir bağlantılısı olduğunu iyi değerlendirmek lazım. O yüzden müziğini anlayabilmek için aslında grubun kendisiyle ilgili de ufak tefek bir şeyler söylemek isterim müsaadenizle. Şöyle biliyorsunuz Alevilik asıl itibariyle bir inanç.
So Alevitism is faith which has pillars, and none of these pillars can be eliminated. So faith, culture, and philosophy are the three pillars, and these three concepts are to be found in the literature and in the music. Many branches of sociology, anthropology, etc. study all these pillars, all this mystic symbolism are around literature. So it's an oral culture. This culture can be better understood when we talk in literature. So when we talk about Alevism and Bektashism, we need to understand the manifest, but is the hymns, the anthems. We need to be able to divide these communities into two categories. The first one are the Alevi from the Ocak, and the other ones are the Bektashi. So we in Turkey, we usually talk about a mixed situation, and each one wants to get something out of this. And there we have the Çelebian and Babahan. And these two groups have very few differences in culture. Similar differences are found in the Balkans, and these are reflected in literature and music. In Turkey, we have done this classification, but we always have the Tahtaji, a group with that stature from the Dardanelles and goes up down to Adana.
Diyeyim Şii diğer gruplar var.
They cannot be classified really somewhere, and there are some other groups. We, however, talk about the Alevi from Ocak and the Bektashi, who are divided in the Çelebi and Babahan. I will not talk about the others because there are many differences among the others. So the more we get close to the Balkans, we see that Bektashism is widespread. So until the 70s or 80s, after the studies that were conducted, we found out that the Bektashi Babagan, there are also the Basi who follow different derkan, but there is rituals, and we see that the focus on the rituals shifts. The music is affected, and so is literature. So in Thrace, we see that there are communities like that the Betrini who resemble with the Babagan. We have the Alikoshlar, the Babai, they resemble the Otman Baba, but we don't know exactly what they are. So in the Balkans, we see that there is a complex structure. So in the Balkans, the situation gets more complex, the understanding becomes more complex. So somebody told me, yes, that he was a kid, and I said, how do you call yourselves? And he said, we are Bektashi. And I said, what? He said that we follow Ali Tali Sultan. And I said, so those who follow him are Bektashi. So he didn't have a clear answer to give me. So this is the situation across the Balkans. Everyone is self-declared as Bektashi. However,
Dilerseniz şöyle bir şey yapalım. Herhalde yaşlandım.
there are some doubts about whether they are or not Bektashi. I need glasses to be able to read at my age. So the order, across all its aspects, uses music. Without music, there's no function without music. In the Balkans, the Xela Bashi do not use at all the saz as a musical instrument, but in Asia Minor and in Anatolia, the use of the shaj, this musical instrument, is very widespread. And closer to the Balkans, we hear that it used to exist, but no evidence is found. So in music, what is important is not really the shaz, but the voice that is to get the voice out. So in Anatolia, it's not really common
Birey olarak söyledikleri de var ama
to take the breath out, that is, so they chant collectively. The community chants these breaths. And many times it's a polyphonic music. So, there is a sound, a specific sound that is given by one, and the others follow the melody. In other Alevi communities, this doesn't exist. How come? It doesn't exist in literature. I will talk about this for the first time. And I think that it has to do with the church in the Byzantium.
Şimdi Bizans kilisesinde bu tek sesli olması hadisesi, dualist olmasına rağmen çok ısrarla sürdürülen bir gelenek. Bugün hala Fener Patrikhanesi'ne gidin. Dün de biz burada bir kiliseye gittik arkadaşlarla. Bilhassa da onu dinledim. Daima altta bir pedal ses var, üstüne bir ilahi okunur. Hatta çeşitli gruplar vardır. Bu şekilde de böyle
So there is a basis upon which the melody evolves, and there are two groups which alternate.
Türkiye'de olsa bu
So very likely this tradition comes from this church, this ecclesiastical tradition.
açıklıkla söyleyeyim. Bununla birlikte nefeslere baktığınızda yani
If I mention this in Turkey, there would be reactions, but here I can say it. If we see the structure of music, we see that there is also a relation with the music of the makam,
bizde Osmanlı
of the Ottoman music. If we see in Anatolia, there are not examples from the Ottoman Turkish music, while here there are some examples. I will play some examples, and it is like the Ottomans, classic composers. They sound like them. So
tamamen farklı. Şimdi
So maybe they do have some similarities, but from the standpoint of the musical culture, in the Balkans and in Anatolia, there is a difference. The music of makam is not exactly music that belongs to the Ottomans. So Greece and this area in general do not really resemble with Turkey or some other part around Greece. So these groups that are called Bektashis today have been affected, influenced by the ecclesiastical music and the Ottoman music.
sizinle paylaşayım.
I have some assumptions on this. I'd like to share them with you. Some cases.
Burada kendilerine benzeyen bir başka grupla karşılaştıklarını söylerler. Bogomiller gibi, değil mi? Bu Balkanlardaki
So this contact with heterodox Christians in the Balkans may be penetrated into their culture. And this is left as an assumption here, because it must be examined thoroughly and in detail. I have some time left. Among the Bektashi in the Balkans, there are many identities and many types. For example, the form of Dwazimam is called Tenefes Onon Kimam. So it's like a translation from the Farsi, Persian language, to Turkish. In Alevi of Anatolia, we see that it's rare to find the kasi, while here such forms are frequent. So maybe they were obliged to have close contacts to the Shinites. Before I spoke about the relation with the Christians from another religion, heterodox, and they adopted the forms Nat and Kasidem. From the domination of the Naxibendi, who took over the Teke of Bektashi, maybe okay, this is an assumption. Okay, I'll just present some examples and I will conclude with this.
Göremiyoruz. Ama böyle kırık kırık, ilginç. Peki gösterebildiklerimizi gösterelim bari. Ne yapalım? Bu İstanbul Balım Sultan Erkan'ı yürüten bir Bektaşi dergahından.
So you will see the Balkans Sultan. Like here we see the dance in the Balkans. This is the circular dance is not found often. If you see something like this in the Balkans, that means that they are the Xilbas. In Anatolia, this Shema, the circular dance, is an integral part of the identity of the Alevi. Some other forms are not so common. This is meal, shure, at the end of the Muharrem. You see the Baba, you see the dervish here. This group do fulfill their functions regularly. This is a group that is an exception. Let me try this.
Et senden medet, Sultanım Ali, dertlinin derdine, dermanım Ali, dertlinin derdine, dermanım Ali. canım, cananım Ali'yim. Gülüm
Ya bir şarkı yani. Değil mi? Bildiğimiz şarkı.
So actually, it's a form of, it's like a song. This makam, this navet, this is exactly the same melody and the same sound. You can listen to it in the patriarchate in Fanari. This was from the Bektashis Creed. When it comes to breaths, the verses do not have to be only in Turkish, but they can be in Albanian, in Greek also. In Istanbul, there was a group called Patriot. This band, these are Muslim, but they speak Greek. But the Karamali are Christians, but they speak Turkish. So this group, this band of patriots are divided in a Sunnite and Bektashi patriot. There is also a third category of the Roma, who speak Greek. This melody comes from Crete. It was recorded and in Istanbul. The patriot groups sing similar melodies. Thank you very much for your patience.
Dear Melih, thank you so much for interesting presentation. Thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments or someone who wants to say something?
Harika.
Okay, let me ask. No. I want to ask Mark. It might be also a private conversation because we discussed these things for more than 10 years now, 20, something like that. But yeah, if a human being become perfect, is not human being anymore. So, taking this, if this is, it arrives to Hakikat, yes, isn't it?
So there's no perfect human.
Let me complete. What's the difference between perfection and completion, to be completed? Is there?
No, it's the same.
Yeah. Okay. That's my.
Yeah. Of course, it's very, very complex topic, and it depends on who is explaining this. If it's Ibn Arabi, or it's Jili, or it's Bektashi Nefes, or a painting. But as I conceive of it, There's human, everyday human like we all are, and there is an ultimate reality. And between the two, there is this kind of range that we're trying to fill to approach that real as a whole. And so what we as humans have to do is to perfect ourselves or to complete ourselves in terms of completing our potential. We all have the potential to reach this. And so we should come to our highest potential, and there we will be the microcosm of the real. We will be the mirror of the real. So we have the potential now, all of us do, but different mystical traditions they present a way for their followers to reach that full potential.